can connect our students, how we can connect them to careers, their college majors, whatever it is that they want to do. So my sector, I cover the Central Region Motherlode, which all of you are invited because you're all part of the Central Region Motherlode. And so my colleges range from Stockton to Bakersfield. There are currently 10 colleges that have agricultural programs, active ones that I work with. The newest one is West Hills College Lemoore. They just joined. They just started a program, and you're going to start to hear a whole lot more about that. I'm going to help them with some of their marketing and getting going because we want you to know about the opportunities you have there. With West Hills College, Kalinga has agriculture as well, so they're not going to be duplicating each other's programs. They're trying to complement what each one has. So the colleges are trying to duplicate efforts. So you're nearby one of these feeder colleges, and that's why you're here with us today. So if there's any way I can help with those, I am housed at Modesto Junior College, so I'm a little bit further north, but I tend to make a lot of trips south, so I'm getting to know the valley and the 99 very well. So what you have in front of you, actually, okay, what you have in front of you, those I call them the job slicks. They're called career sheets on the website. And the website is the Doing What Matters website, and you'll just click on the agriculture tab, and then under resources, you'll find all of these. So, and I did mention it a little bit earlier, you have 2 duplicate copies. One is in Spanish and one is in English. The Spanish is the newest one that just came out. We're really excited to be able to have both to offer to you. So, my understanding is I'm talking to a group of counselors that want to help students figure out what they want to do with their life. And this is the resource that I wish I could take credit for it, but I will not take credit for it. So on camera, I said, Nancy made these, my boss, I'm a deputy sector navigator for Central Motherlode. I have a state sector navigator, that's Nancy Gutierrez. She's located at Whately College, but Nancy is responsible for all of this work here. What I love about these, and what helps when I talk to either high school students or college students or counselors, is when you look at the backside, I think that's where you really get the meat and potatoes of these. And that's what I'm going to go through as we talk briefly, and I'll give you a chance here to ask me some questions about these careers. The backside breaks down what you can do with this major. So when I'm talking to a student and they look at this, or I'm talking to a parent, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm going to pick on animal science a little bit because we have a lot of students who say, I want to be a vet. I love fluffy cats. Woo! Which, we need vets, don't get me wrong. But it's kind of the 1% of them are going to make it all the way to a DVM and become a practicing veterinarian. So what do we do with the 99% that fell off in between? What if they pick that major, they get 3 years into it, and realize they don't want 5 more years of education. They want to figure out what they can do now with my degree. And I love all of these sheets because it doesn't just say there's one job on the back. You're looking at sectors. And each one of those sectors breaks down into all ways they can apply that degree. So I hope these resources really are something that helps you. And we'll kind of go through a few of them. Feel free. This is a great time to ask questions that I may understand because I'm in the industry. And so I may use an acronym or a topic that you don't quite understand.
Are there any more forms of that?
I'll make sure you get one, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there's a seat too if you want to grab one. There's one up here, wherever you'd like to go. So let's see. I picked on animal science. Let's go with animal science because really we have a strong industry in animal science, especially with our young people. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of this, but many of our young people are competing in what's called junior jackpots. And there's a whole circuit where students will be traveling with their parents. They can start as young as 7 and 8 years old. Some even younger can now be exhibiting pigs or sheep or cattle. And it's kind of like a club sport. If you've heard of club volleyball or travel soccer or baseball, it's a travel sport. You've got crazy show moms and dads that are loading up livestock, and on the weekends, they're Friday nights, or Friday mornings, they're driving to whatever location it is. They're setting up shop. They've got the tents, the ice chests, the tack boxes. They're just bringing along livestock too. So there's usually a hotel stay or campers behind it. There's some sort of camping rig, and they camp up for the weekend. They show all weekend, and they drag those animals home. So we've got a great base of young people that are loving this animal industry. Now, what do we do with that? What do they do with an animal science degree? Well, the veterinarian is one of them. It is one area you can use an animal science degree, but if you've got the animal science one in front of you, you can see it breaks down into 5 other sectors. For example, ag business. Really, an ag business major is going to be involved in multiple sectors. An ag business major is pretty versatile. They can work in an animal segment. Maybe instead of them actually selling livestock, which is not necessarily the biggest area that we're going to see students having career opportunities. They might be the ones, though, that are helping to provide the service to that company. So maybe they're in the area of feed, pharmaceuticals. I'll tell you, I raise cattle, like I mentioned, and hogs. We are writing vet bills or bills to our pharmaceutical companies often, and we need to have those suppliers readily available. So we have representatives that do that. Those are opportunities for students to be involved in the industry, involved in animal science, but they're not necessarily touching fluffy cows every day. That makes some sense. But they use that knowledge, they use that experience. They get to be involved in that industry, and they get to still go to the show circuit if they want to and see all their buddies and friends. They might be involved in marketing and management, probably one of the biggest sectors that we see. Most of our animals are starting to be marketed online, and not just starting, they're sold online most of the time. In fact, with the Certified Angus Beef, if you've heard of Certified Angus Beef, the Angus Association is our leading representative in terms of meat sales and meat operations, and they've got a new one where with all of their cattlemen, when they are producing livestock, they can actually become, the ag link, they call it the Angus link now. And on Angus link, they get a report card where they can display their report card digitally. And so when they're selling livestock, they need the marketing service, they need those ag business graduates, they need those students to understand livestock to help them promote their opportunities to the right cattle buyers that want to buy cattle that reach that certain criteria. So they get a score, and if they score in a certain quadrant, the likelihood and the percentage of those cattle and that meat grading in the take the right pictures of my hog to get them online, to get them seen by the market that I want for the price that I want. And that's where our students are huge. My daughter, as I'm talking to her, she's 14, she's a high school freshman, and she's trying to think about careers, and she loves the internet. She loves to look at, Instagram, not Facebook. Facebook's me, right? She does the Instagram. She's on Instagram, she's watching influencers. And we started a great conversation about how her love and interest in that and her ability is something that it's almost like she speaks another language that gives her that ability to come in and assist that agriculture business there with the aging owners or the folks that just don't feel that technology savvy. They can come out and start to see that the new movement, and then they could be an asset to that company or that business. And then they start to realize as students, and she did, gosh, I do have a lot to offer. Okay, let me start thinking about what I would do. Who would I want to work for? She go, oh, then I can sell feed. I said, yep. Or I can sell pigs. Yes. Oh, I can sell this medication because we love it. Every time we use it, it makes the cows feel better. There we go. Now you're on the right track. Those are the kind of positions you're going to see. You're not going to necessarily be growing cows every day, because that is a huge investment that most of the time we're seeing. That's something that you were born into generationally. So by getting a loan to start your own feed operation or start your own hog operation, if you don't already have those things kind of in place, it can be prohibitive for folks to enter the industry. We're not necessarily seeing a surge in the folks that need to be producers. We're seeing a surge in the folks that need to help us market this program and make sure that all of our consumer, who is very concerned about safety, very concerned about the process that is being taken from start to finish with their food source, and very also concerned with how you're managing that operation. We need our young people to help us tell that story. So as you can see at each one of these, you can see some other breakdowns. The science and technology one here, I wanted to come to the quality control because the food science area is another one that's in there for you. It is an area of greatest need. We are seeing that students, companies need quality control. We need to have, as I mentioned, those consumers want to know where are those stop gaps, where are those challenges, or where are those critical control points we need to make sure are being managed. And we need those students that are interested in the food operation, the food industry, that will then also have that degree to understand, first of all, the soft skills of managing people, but then the second part is to understand the food safety aspects and how they can maintain our safe food supply, not just in a plant, but the safe food supply from the farm to the home. We'll go with the store because we can't always control what happens to once it leaves your car or the store to your home, but as best we can to get that message out and keep our food safety managers, and we can't find enough, there aren't enough, we're not producing enough. It's a huge gap. And anyone that might be interested in food science, food safety, quality assurance. Quality assurance are programs that we have, like, for example, I have my baby calves they always get sick this time of year as we go from hot weather to cold weather, and then, oh, hot again. They all hit pneumonia last week. So every one of our baby cats had to be redoctored. And so we have a medication that we give them, but when we give this medication, it's important that it's given under the skin and behind the ear. We do that because, first of all, it's not going to be in any of the major muscle groups, so it's not necessarily, if there was to be anything wrong with that injection, that's not going to be in major, you wouldn't cut into a steak that has now a cyst or some sort of infection or whatever could possibly happen. So to avoid that, we're going to use a location that's not necessarily a major muscle group. Also, the least invasive method is underneath the skin, so we're going to do a subcutaneous injection, and those are all part of this quality control protocol that we need to make sure producers understand also, so that they're just not willy-nilly shoving a syringe right into the beautiful ham or right into the beautiful ribeye steak. That's not what we do it, because we don't want those to have those kind of damage. And that's another important protocol that's part of that food safety, part of that education system. We need to make sure our producers know. I mean, you want that, right? You want us to be out there checking that. So if food safety was a big one, which it is, by the way, it's increasing, it's incredible, the need. So that's definitely an area if they have any sort of interest that way. Plant and soil science is probably more critical than that though. Our plant and soil science, it's not sexy. It's not fluffy cows. Nobody wants to go play with plants. So how do we get these students to want to go into this area? But I'll tell you, this is where the jobs are. This is where the money is. And this is where those students can have long-term employment with growth, with those jobs that have benefits for them in terms of not just being able to provide for their family, but to grow themselves as a professional and maintain in the career. I'll use a pest control advisor right now because that's a pretty big one. Most of our pest control advisors are retiring now. They are retirement age. They are 57 and older, and they have these amazing jobs. A student coming out to be a pest control advisor, I can give you this example because one of mine did. She came out of Cal Poly with her BCA license, her degree. It is a male-dominated industry, so for a young lady to come in there, well, there is going to be a bit of a challenge because oftentimes, as I mentioned, our farming generation, our producers are of an older generation, and they sometimes aren't quite ready to talk to a lady. But those young ladies that can come into that operation and build that relationship, which you can. You have those people skills, those soft skills to be able to make those connections. She had an amazing, I couldn't believe that was her first year of a job that took, with a career that she can grow and enhance and continue to challenge herself for taking on a new territory, a new type of seed or chemical, whatever it was going to be. You had a question, my friend.
Bad question, but I thought of pest control, I think you pest control the house.
You're okay.
But it is plants. And
I appreciate that, yes, because when I say pest, and thank you for clarifying, because when I say pest, I'm thinking I have nut orchards that need to get sprayed, right? Exactly. And I know in your mind, all of you said, oh, but organic doesn't spray anything. Let's be clear. That organic, yeah, they do. They just spray different stuff. There's certain things that they can, and a commercial or conventional farming just can spray more. Personally, if you're asking me, and I'm not making a pitch either way, I like conventional because I know there isn't any junk on it. And I don't really want to take a risk that way, but I do have some fruit trees in my backyard that we call organic because it means we do nothing to them. Woo! They get some dirt and some water. So, but not plugging that, not the point of the day, but that is a very important area as well. We have many consumers that don't know the difference. They're shelling out double the money for a product that got less of the items or got less of the treatment, got less of the management protocols that would have been in place. And did you know that? And did you know that when you do buy organic, for example, like organic nuts, you're using the same amount of water and the same amount of soil, same amount of trees, same amount of everything, and half of them are going to die and be unused. They're going to be trash bin. So that's why it's more money. Is oftentimes you're paying for the lost product because they have to recoup their money somehow. So it's not necessarily that it's always better for the environment. Organic does not mean better for the environment all the time because oftentimes you're taking up all the same resources producing half the amount. And that doesn't necessarily help our environment when we're using that many resources to not produce efficiently the amount of food that we could be producing. So educational opportunities for our students there to make sure that our consumers really do understand where every dollar that they're spending goes, and an honest understanding between the consumer and the farmer. What am I paying for? and what am I really getting? What is the service you're providing? Plant and soil science, though, is an area we cannot fill enough. If food science needed people, plant science needs double that amount, triple that amount. Pick your number. We need a lot. The plant science area is begging for folks that will come through that have an interest in this. We have generations that are in the positions of marketing or managing these operations, and they need the next generation to come in and learn how to do it. With that understanding that the technology they bring, the technology understanding, back to that again, these students are going to be way better able to manage. They can expand what the company can do or what this product can be pushed to, because they have that understanding of technology and how they can better utilize all the resources that there are, and finding more resources out there that we weren't aware of with our conventional or the past practices. So with plants, we don't want to think that it's just about plants. It does have a lot to do with water, and I think if that's any area, in addition, it's going to be our water. We're going to be fighting the water battle more than we will any other battle. It's whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting about, because that, and you already know in our area, this valley, that water's precious to every little thing we do. But it's not just about the food that we're producing, it's also coming into our homes. It's the water that we're using in our homes, managing what goes in that water. Wastewater management is an area that we can't it's not exciting, it's not sexy. It's a poop tour. Who wants to deal with poop? But I don't, you don't. We want somebody to be our sanitation manager. We need somebody that's out there that's managing that for us. And the scientific processes that go into making that happen will blow your mind. The technology that's applied in moving water through a filtration or a reclamation system is beyond comprehension. Every municipality has to have one. Every single municipality. So whether it's Clovis is working with the City of Fresno, or in our area, Modesto actually takes wastewater from the smaller cities in the area, because Modesto has capacity to take on additional water and treat that wastewater. That whole management system is in serious need of people that are willing to come in and operate those systems, manage that pipeline, and literally a pipeline, but manage the pipeline of getting water back into our system, back into our available drinking water use. And then, of course, with plant science, we do have our traditional greenhouses, our horticulture. One of the industry partners we have up in Modesto area is the Doherty Nursery, and we went on a tour, an industry tour, to see what they were up to. They have a tissue culture lab where they have over 1 million specimens of plants at any given time that we're moving out within 60 to 90 days, move out of that tissue culture lab. That is a very skill specific to be able to work in those clean rooms where they can manage the lab skills, where they can follow the protocols and maintain the integrity of whatever plant material they're using. And this is a sterile environment. It has to be maintained. It has to be done with the protocols. Finding students that can take the list of A to Z or A to G, this is what I need to do, finish A, then finish B, then finish C, and follow that to the letter, complete that process. And then if there's potential there when they've got millions of plants and they're growing them, any sort of disruption in that or failure to follow the protocol could result in 500,000 of them dying before they even become useful, which is then lost to the company, lost to the production. And what if that was a food source that we need? Well, of course it's a food source we need. If that was spinach, now we have to double our production to be able to get those back in the way, or back in the system. Ag mechanics, we're very excited to have this one. If you've seen this before, you've got these before, you didn't have ag mechanics, so now you do. And that definitely feeds into our technology conference here, because this is becoming a technology-driven industry. They're not just out there with a hammer and a nail. They're operating machinery that is high-tech, machinery that needs them to understand. And we're not using old stick welders anymore. They're using welding machines and operations that are driven by a computer system. That computer system is then interfacing with the human. They need to understand how to make it work, how to diagnose those problems, and the precise measurements that go into each one of those things. I'd love to give you an example of an animal science that also involves ag mechanics, because it's involving our engineers. So in the dairy industry, we're experiencing a huge issue with our ability to find qualified labor, or labor that is willing to work on a dairy operation. Cattle are stinky, it's dusty, it's hot, And we don't necessarily find folks that are willing to do that kind of work with us. So our dairy managers, they had to figure something out. So they started years ago looking at automation. What can we start to do? Do I have to have a human being standing right there and push those cows in? Or could I create a robot? And maybe that robot could sense where my cows are and could, following some of those important animal behavior concepts, move those animals, coax them into the position, and do the same job, filling the position I can't find a human being to fill. We're not taking a job away. There's just no human that wants to do it or is willing to do it. So we took a step further. Besides being able to move cows from one pen to another, how about we had a robot that could go ahead and put the milk machine on the cow, so that when those cows went in and it was their time for milking, this machine, it's called the Astronaut, it will sense the cow is there. It'll actually use laser beams to locate each of the 4 teats. It'll then run the sanitizing solution over all 4 teats. It'll then bring in the milk machine. It will find and locate every one of the teats so that it's starting, that now that the udder is primed and cleaned and they've gotten the machine on, it'll start to milk that cow. That machine we've had automation in terms of a milk machine milking a cow. So now we've just taken the part of somebody having to put the machine on the cow out of the equation. As soon as it's completed, we watch the flow rates. A farmer can be sitting right in his front room. He could be down the hall, down the road negotiating a feed price. He could be having coffee, and he can see on his interface that he can watch how the cows are going through. He can see the video feed that's coming. He can also see the flow rate. The flow rate starts to decrease. We know that udder has now been expelled of all the milk that's going to come out at this particular milking, and the machine will shut itself down, do the clean-off protocol, and it sends the cow away. When the cow comes in, she gets a little treat, so she keeps coming back. But there's sensors, but each cow has a little collar sensor, and the machine, when she comes up to her to see if she gets another snack and it's time to get relieved of her milk, the machine has a nice little brush that says, no, go away, not your turn yet, we'll see you in a few hours. So that those cows are getting milked on a regular 8-hour shift like they normally would be. Any sort of interruption, they even have now the ability on that to test that milk as the first milk comes through, and they can hold it in the line. The robot, the machine, will hold it in the line so that if that cow is showing she's got any mastitis. Mastitis is an infection of the udder. We do not have mastitis milk. If any drop of mastitis milk makes it into my tank, that 10,000 gallons gets dumped in the trash. That's my money. So I don't want that to happen. So this will actually test it, will hold it in the line, and if it tests or comes up with any of the populations that we'd be concerned about, it goes into a different tank and it does not end up in the cell tank that gets sent to the creamery. So we have the ability to test the milk in real time. If that thing goes down, the company has an engineer that is available for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They only allow for a 4-hour lag time. So if anything were to go wrong, they will fix that machine, and they can interface from Australia. They can pull up, they can get to your machine, and they can tell you what's wrong and how to fix it and walk the farmer. That's the key, is we need somebody that can talk to a farmer and say, here's where the plug is. Reach back, find it. Okay, if you don't have that, go find a wrench. Here's what a wrench looks like. So that's where our students that can be the tech providers, that can be the tech support for that milk machine, that company can't find enough people to do that. We need those tech savvy kids to come in and be of course, and design even better machines. That the Astronaut is the first one of its kind, but it's working so well that we're able to invest, let's say $50,000, let's say $100,000 in buying our first Astronaut. We put it out for a robot. That robot is going to be a depreciable asset, and we don't have to pay for it every single year after year. So it's a way that we're still able to provide the kind of quality service, quality milk production, servicing those cows with the lack of employment. What are we going to do without having a person that wants to do that? Here's a way. And then those students that we have can be the people that will help make sure that technology continues and expands and grows. So it's a great, I love sharing that example because I love watching the Astronaut work. With ag mechanics though, that is also the largest growing area we have for teachers. And I haven't really mentioned education yet. Of course, being an ag educator, I know that we have a huge need, and that's where we're seeing all of our classes in agriculture education across the state are expanding, and most of those programs are expanding the area of ag mechanics. And one of the stigmas we need to work on is that oftentimes the ladies think it's not an area for them to be. And ag mechanics is definitely an area where we could use some ladies. And those ladies that have that ability or have that inclination, that is a way they can make a lot of money and be very desired. They not only because the companies want to be able to provide equity, but oftentimes our ladies tend to be a little more detail oriented. Amazing, right? So when you're looking at the quality and the integrity of a weld, it's not just about how strong you can make it, it's about how perfect that weld was. And that detail orientation that tends to come from the female mindset, not that gentlemen can't be great at it, they're not just slapping a weld down though, and we are seeing that ladies do tend to be very, very successful in this area, and so we do want to try and encourage them, although it's not as sexy because you got a welding helmet, you got soot on your face, you're wearing leathers, and we can air condition the shop to a degree, but we got to ventilate it so that you don't choke on CO2 fumes as you're running those welds. But our welding operations they're not just making, barbecue pits. They are, the high schools are working on getting these students to understand the different types of welds, the different materials they're going to be using. They're expensive programs to run, but there's a lot of money coming through CTE, through the Department of Education, and you heard about the Strong Workforce monies, and that's all helping to get these students those machinery, the machinery operations, so they can understand how to work those and how they can provide a great living to their families, a career where they can expand and grow. It's an area that's in great need for folks as well. So I would say most need plant science, second food science, agrogenics right underneath it. We don't need any more folks that like fluffy cows. We have a lot of folks that like fluffy cows, but we want people that like fluffy cows to find a way to make that fluffy cow job useful for them and their family. Let's go to ag business real quick. We already did talk about that one, but I didn't mention as much. There's opportunities within government organizations for legislation, for lobbyists, for programmatic opportunities to create it with conservation boards, or maybe they're working with water boards. The water board in California is a contentious issue. It's still going to be for quite some time as we decide which rivers and which water sources are going to be utilized and which ones are going to be dumped in the Pacific Ocean, or maybe not dumped anymore in the Pacific Ocean. And those are programmatic government type jobs where we need students that understand the industry of agriculture to help understand why something would be important versus maybe not as important, or how we can help our communities understand that voting for this particular measure or this particular committee, this is how it's going to affect what's happening in your pocketbook, essentially, because when you want to go buy something that involves water, let's say, that extra charge or that lack of availability for the water is going to make or break differences in terms of prices and availability for our customers and consumers. So ag business is definitely probably the biggest area. One of them I haven't mentioned is financing. And this one maybe sometimes doesn't seem as obvious. Obviously, I'm in the industry, so I think it's obvious, of course. Well, we have a nut farm, and when we pulled out our nuts a few years, because walnut trees or an almond tree, they have a certain amount of life. So when you put a walnut tree or an almond tree in the ground, we grow both, that's a stick. It's usually like a pencil, usually the size of them. Sometimes they can be thicker, and they're usually a milk carton. And that's not going to grow nuts for maybe 3, 4, 5 years, depending on the type of varietal that you're using. And maybe that's not something that everybody is aware of, but when we go to do that, so I have land, let's say, and I have a loan on that land, and I'm going to take those nuts out of production right now. Well, that means that in September, I'm not going to get a nut check for selling the almonds. I'm going to get a fat lot of nothing. And I need a huge ton of capital right now, because I got to wait for a year to let we have to fumigate, we have to prep all that soil, and bring in new irrigation systems or whatever kind of repairs we're going to do, and that soil is going to sit, that land is going to be unproductive for 3 to 4 more years. But I got to dump a ton of money in it to make it ready, so that once those trees are cared for and healthy and ready in 3 to 4 years, I'm going to start getting a nut check again. So our lenders, you go down to the bank and you tell them that, they're like, yeah, no. You want this much money, you want $300,000, you want $1 million. And you're going to pay me in 5 years? Fan-freaking-tastic. There's the door. So we have to have ag lenders. Our ag lenders understand that when I'm asking you for $300,000 to put in new trees and irrigation and fumigate and leave my land idle, essentially, that money is going to be recouped. I'm going to have a different kind of interest rate. It's going to be amortized in a completely different manner to reflect what's going to be happening, and also understanding that I've got a 30-year shelf life or a 35-year shelf life on those trees that I'll be able to accept payment on. So understanding those kind of terms, insurance providers that understand agriculture, key. If I want to insure that crop that I just borrowed $500,000 on, I can't go just to any old insurance agency and say, sure, I'll pay you I won't have money for 5 years. How about that one? Yeah, insure me, and I can't pay you for 5 years. Sound good? And the insurance company is like, all right. But an agriculture lender, an agriculture insurance agency understands those different nuances where, oh wow, I guess, yeah, you did just buy a cow, and she's not going to be in production for 8 months until she gives birth to that baby, because they don't give milk until they have their first baby. So you got to raise them for 2.5 years till they give their first calf. You get a drop of any sort of money off that cow. And so they understand those kind of lending, they understand those kind of insurance needs. If I'm close to a highway and I have livestock, maybe I need to have different kind of insurance, because if my animal gets out, it is my responsibility if it causes an accident or causes damage. And even if it was the car that drove into the fence that let my cow out, it's still my fault because that's my animal. We've got to have animals that are insured. We've got to make sure that those farms are protected, and otherwise they're going out of business as well. So we're looking for folks that understand those kind of things. And when you're looking for real estate, especially when you're trying to market or sell different types of real estate, when you're buying and you're wanting to be able to understand what's the market value of those trees. When we bought one of our properties we bought as a family, our real estate agent, we actually ended up dropping them as a real estate agent because we asked them the value and they had no concept of understanding what those trees were, how old they were, or when they were going to need to be pulled out. And had we actually went with the information they'd given them, which was not given us, was not correct, we would have actually been purchasing land with trees that had to be pulled out within a year. Wait a minute. That wasn't the investment. I thought I was going to be getting a $40,000 nut check every September. Now you're telling me I get one $40,000 nut check, and now I got to dump $500,000 into this property. So real estate agent, huge liability if you got yourself to that kind of situation. So understanding those kind of things when they're brokering, when they're lending, all of those things are areas that we don't often think about as an ag career. But really, over half of this valley is employed in the ag industry, and they probably don't even know it. And there is an opportunity for your students. On the back of those sheets, I tell students, find 2 or 3 things that you like on there, so that's how you know that's your major. If there's only one thing on there you like, that's not a good choice, because you gotta have ways to branch and diversify. Every one of you in this room, we didn't start out on the path to get us to the job where we are today because we knew we wanted to be here. We started out on this path because it sounded like a pretty good idea, and there was gonna be options. And that's the whole idea with Guided Pathways, is getting folks on those paths that they think they like, in those meta majors they think they like, and hopefully they find several different things they might like, and they'll specialize and separate off from the things they eventually want to do. So you have another one for ag education. So I started out in ag education, but I've pivoted as well, and I moved into a little bit more of a leadership role. There's also roles education-wise within our government, because we have Department of Education. We have an agriculture education division in there, and a career technical division that we need to make sure we're still maintaining our representation in Sacramento, making sure the voice is heard. Obviously, you see the money that's coming into the career technical area. It didn't happen because we sat back and said we're doing a great job. It's because we have folks that are there that are pleading our case, that are continuing to sing the song career technical and the needs that we have in our workforce. Go ahead, yeah, questions, sorry.
So if I want to have student business, I think I'm kind of interested in doing
Food and ag business?
Food and ag business. On your website, is there a program of study, like a scope and sequence of courses and time frame where I could be in classes, done with classes, employed, gainfully?
No, there's a reason why. I don't represent one college, and it's not the same cookie. It varies just slightly. What we are doing though, as a guide, and hopefully this will be something that will evolve to address what you're saying, is we are working, and I've been promoting some programs that we are creating some scheduling guides, is what we're calling them, which is the roadmap that says if you're an animal science major, you don't go into the cafeteria of I'll take poultry science, now I'll go take pharmacology. Instead, this is, you take this one, you take this one, you take this one, you take that one, then you make your decision, go this way or that way. So we're working on that, but we want to, it's hard to be general and specific, if you understand, and everyone has their own perfect little snowflakes, everyone's little snowflakes, and so we have to make sure we maintain some sort of vagueness or flexibility, I guess is better to say, but we are working on those kind of, but each college would have that. Every single college does. So, for example, you've got a student, let's say you want to talk to Bakersfield College, I will connect you up with them. They have a guided pathway map to get through their program. That makes sense. The big challenge that we're seeing, and I'm not sure if you have heard this one already, is students are just not taking enough units. The average number of units that a student at MJC is taking right now, 5. 5 per semester. I just heard the number from Delta, 3. Average number of units they're taking a semester. You're going to be here for 6 years. You're going to be here for 10 years.
Is it transferable units or is
They
that?
don't even know. They're just picking off the menu.
Like a program of study that's not a target.
Yeah, it's willy-nilly. They don't know what they want to do. And one of I happened to be talking, the reason I bring it up, I was talking to the faculty, and the faculty brought this up to me. She said, I sat down with this young man as we're trying to look at his ed plan and what we're going to do. And he goes, yeah, I take 1 course a semester. She goes, you're going to be here 10 years. And he went, what? She goes, a degree is 60. What do you want? I want to be he said, I want to be a vet. You're going to retire before you become a vet. Are you kidding at that rate? So it was like, oh my gosh, more units. And that's just across the board. That's not any one particular. They don't get that you've got to take 15 to finish. Like that's the whole point of that movement. You've got to take those units to finish a degree because a degree doesn't come with just 2 or 3 units. And then a lot of our colleges, I'm sure you're hearing, is at least the ones that I'm working with on these guided pathways, we're creating degrees or certificates or awards that happen after the first year. So that they're not necessarily, especially when they're following the guided pathway, they automatically incur an award or certificate. It helps, first of all, to show that we have completers, because oftentimes our community college challenges that we're sending students on a transfer, they may not actually request, and they will complete an AA or they will complete an AST, and they will not actually ask for the degree to be conferred. They may not want to affect their financial aid or whatever reasons they may, or they may just not know they have to ask to have a degree conferred. So they're leaving without getting any awards, and then it looks like the community colleges aren't doing anything. But we know very well that we're completing or helping these students, they're getting through their units. So we're looking at actually putting in some awards and degrees that'll finish after a year, so that when they put in a year, they're still going to get recognized, and that kind of gives them that incentive to keep going.
Are students in FFA programs, do they have any preference with all these different career?
Like preferential treatment?
Yeah, or.
Well, definitely, because any of your FFA program kids, I will guarantee your colleges are already trying, they're already inviting them, they have events coming, they know them, they're trying to get in touch with them. They are recruiting them. That's how we know. We know we want them. A lot of times they're competing on what's called career development events, or their field days. Have you heard of field days?
Yeah.
Yes. Every one of those colleges that puts it on, they're not just doing it because they want to host a contest. They're looking for the best one that can figure out the agronomy problem, or the best hay judge, or the best livestock judge. They're looking for them to recruit. Absolutely. So any of those kids in the FFA program are definitely going to be recruited heavily. Good question. Others?
On your website, you know where these things are, is there also like if I'm talking with a high school kid and they're like, oh yeah, I want to do horticulture, is there like a list that has schools that would have that major, like an easy access, so you can say?
I will have to double check. I believe so. But if you go to that one, you're going to be at our Central Motherlode, and it'll have our 10 colleges. But if there's any that you're not sure of, I can definitely help you figure that out. I'm fairly certain it's
Yeah,
on there
because
though.
I use it for the allied health
Oh, good. Okay.
programs. And so like if I'm looking for other options, like for RATTEC, because Fresno City's impacted, then it pulls up all the different schools. So
Oh,
it
thank you.
should.
Yeah, I believe it does. I just don't want to for certain. But yeah, and if not, any of us TSNs can direct you the right way.
I believe some, because I think Valerie, our deputy sector, said that, at least for Ally Health, I don't know if the ag ones, but Ally Health, like, right now it's getting updated, because it hadn't been updated for a long time, so I don't know if that's happened.
No, I don't think we're going through an upgrade yet, but we probably will because we're doing some surveying.
Because
Yeah,
they're like, yeah, it's been, so they're working on it.
it'll be new, but ours is not scheduled for yet.
Is there a reason why Fresno City's not a part of it? They don't have ag.
No, because that's Reedy College, because they're part of a state
They're state center, so
So
Reedy
Reedy
has
has the ag, and then
I
Fresno
think-
City has automotive and Ally Health.
Right, and I also think that there's a water program, a municipal water program at Clovis.
Yeah.
But they don't, and that's still, they don't fall under my purview yet though,
Yeah.
because I don't think that
They
program
just-
comes into an ag, yeah, it comes into a different area. But yeah, that's,
Reedy
they
College,
don't have
yeah,
programs.
or state center.
So
then,
State Center will be Reedy
like
College.
Tulare is
Yeah.
for us, Visalia has the
Allied Health, yep, is in Visalia.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
How many of these are set up as an early college or new credit system?
You know what's really cool?
High schools near us.
Every one of these colleges, your students that are high school students right now can take classes for free.
Right, but I'm
Yeah.
just, the alignment
Yeah,
is not set up.
they're not, we are not there yet. That's what that K-12 money is gonna probably fund some programs and to finish that. But every one of those colleges, for example, at Modesto, I just know because I'm there, and I've already talked to them, my daughter's a freshman now, what can she start taking? And they have some of those matriculation courses they can already start to take that'll help that early college.
Their site.
Yes, and some of them are online. They offer also in the summer programs. So I don't know how summers always work everywhere else. I just know at Modesto we have 3 summer sessions. So a student can actually take 3, you're just doing 1 course, you could do 3 courses in a summer, plus a fall or a spring. So if they're an athlete maybe and they can't really do it in the fall, they could do a spring class. They're online versions and we're trying to make those online available. So
Reedy College has.
They do.
The Reedy Middle High School for the ag business.
they have a dual enrollment
Yeah.
right now for that, which will probably be our first model to go
Yeah.
into the early college
Building
matriculation.
their high school right next to the cows. and
My buddy Sam is working with all that. Mr. Rodriguez, sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Rodriguez is working on all
everything.
that. Not my buddy. Great questions. Are there any others? Have I missed any, Mark, that with you? I know we didn't finish through all of them, but you have that information. I just kind of want to show you how it would work, give you some examples of what that looks like. Forestry, if there is one other area I could just touch on, is that the forest fires, it's very well known now that the reason we are having the amount of damage is because of our mismanagement. And there is money coming, there is initiatives coming for Forest Service, forest management. We have to deforest, we have to get that dead trees out of there. All we have is fuel and beetles that are waiting to set the world on fire again. So the Forest Service is going to see an influx. This kind of was probably a lull for a while, and our natural resources, environmental science management is going to be another huge area. Think about students that like to go camping or like to be outdoors. When they get to work for the Forest Service, that's where they are at. They get to go into those beautiful remote spaces away from people, so that they can go get some fresh air and really help us to improve, because all of that area is going to have, it's major overhaul. It's going to cost us a lot of money to fix it if we don't get on it quick. It's only going to get worse. What was it? It was, the term from FDR was either farm it, cut it, or, graze it, cut it, or watch it burn. And so we need to do something with our forests. We need to graze it, we need to forest, like farm it that way, or we're going to watch it burn even more. So thank you so much for your time again.